Welcome everyone to another edition of Get Your Game On, the channel dedicated to immersive gaming experiences. So, to be honest, I was going to skip any kind of talk about the Meta Quest Pro because, according to Meta, it's not a gaming headset. It's designed for productivity and business. But I've had several people ask me my opinion on it, so I thought, well heck, I might as well shoot a video on it. So here we go. Okay, to start off, I just want to get something out of the way first. I am not a fan of Meta. I'm not a fan of their marketing practices, their privacy practices, and I also don't appreciate what they're trying to do with their version of the metaverse. That being said, I'm not going to let my personal biases color what could be a possible good headset for some of you out there. So I will endeavor to give you my honest opinion, but I want you to know my true feelings on Meta. And if you want to know more, up here's a rant I did during last year's Meta Connect 2021 that goes into detail my feelings on Meta. So that being said, the other thing I want to point out is I don't own this headset. I've not used this headset. Instead, I've been spending about the last week looking at other reviewers, kind of trying to get all the information together and kind of get my own thoughts together on what I'm seeing from them. So I don't have personal experience with this headset, and I have no plans to buy this headset. Again, I'm not going to personally support Meta, but again, this can be a good fit for some of you that don't have the same feelings I do. So with that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about what I think about the Meta Quest Pro. Now, again, like I stated earlier, Meta themselves say this is not a gaming headset. This is for productivity. They're working towards the AR market and enterprise and industry. I don't think they're quite there yet, is my personal opinion. I think a lot of what I'm seeing is the headset it's a neat step forward towards that, but I don't think it's anywhere near where it needs to be for industry to adopt it. There are several reasons why. Probably primarily it looks to me the AR camera, which is one of the things they're really touting, doesn't look like it's a very good quality. Yes, it gives you kind of that room scale, but it's fisheyed, it's blurry, so I don't see that as a really ideal solution for the market they're going after there. But we're a gaming channel, so we're going to talk about it as it relates to gaming. So I'm not going to talk about any more about the AR or any of that mixed reality stuff, other than I don't think that that's a part of this headset I would even consider buying it for at this stage. Just to be clear, I'm not going to go into all the specs and all the unboxing, all that. There's plenty of videos out there for that. I'm just going to share with you my first impressions. Now, what I will say is, it looks like these Pancake lenses are amazing, and I truly believe the Pancake lens system is probably going to be the wave of the future moving forward for VR headsets. They have a lot of the benefits of the aspheric lenses that you see in the Vario Aero. You have the large sweet spot, you have the clarity out to the edges, and it's kind of funny. So I'm watching the reviewers, and I think they're experiencing a lot of the stuff that I personally experienced when I first tried the Vario Aero. I mean, it's just a neat experience. They're blown away by the edge-to-edge clarity, they're blown away by the clarity, and that's exactly what I thought when I did the Aero. So I think they're going through a lot of the same emotions and experiences that I had 6 months ago. So that's kind of neat to see, and it just shows you the power of VR and how good it can be when it's done correctly. Now, my initial concerns on the Quest Pro were obviously battery life. I heard this thing was not doing well on battery life, so I looked at that. It looks as though the battery life on the headset isn't too bad. It's anywhere from an hour and a half to maybe 2.5 to 3 hours, depending on how you have the settings, how bright the screens are, those kinds of things. But what doesn't worry me so much about the battery life now is the fact that it actually has a C port in the side, which looks like it actually does positive charging. So for those of you that have watched my review of headsets for beginners, I talked about the Quest 2 and how even if it was plugged in, it slowly discharged. So it would eventually go dead even if it was plugged in. Well, it looks like the Quest Pro is positively charging, so as long as you plug it in, you should be able to use it indefinitely. So that's a good thing to see. And so the other thing is, because it's designed for room scale, because it has that port, you're going to be able to take kind of these battery packs that, like, this is from my VIVE. This is my VIVE Pro that I use when I do wireless. And you'll be able to take a battery pack like this and plug it into the Quest Pro, and that should prolong your sessions for, as long as you really need it to, as long as you have batteries for it. I would recommend, if this is something you're going to do and you're going to go long gaming hours, try to find a 90-degree plug for this. It looks like that'll work better in the Quest Pro. But that's one thing. So I'm not as worried about battery life for gaming in the Quest Pro. It looks like the controllers themselves last anywhere from 6 down to maybe 4 hours. So in that range, depending on how hard you use them and stuff. So I think you're going to get a good, with batteries and stuff, you should be able to game all you want to. It's going to be very compatible or very similar to what we game with now. So I think, you'll be able to get 4 to 6 hours pretty easily. So that was one thing I was happy to see, and that was probably one of my biggest concerns was that. Now, one thing I don't like, Quest did decide to go with a proprietary plug on the controllers, which means there's not a USB-C or any kind of USB plug. So you have to charge those controllers in their charging dock or using their proprietary charging cable. And that means if you forget to charge them one night, you're going to be out of luck if you wanted to game the next day. So you're going to really have to be on top of keeping those controllers charged, because there's no way to plug those in via any kind of USB cable. So that being said, that's part of it. Interestingly enough, the specs on the resolution are lower than the Quest 2. But it looks like, because they're independent screens and because they have a higher pixel density, it looks like that's not really an issue. Everybody that I've watched have talked about, it's a very clear screen. So I don't think you're going to have any issues there. So that's kind of that. Now, obviously, the elephant in the room is the price tag. So you're looking at $1,500 for this thing, which is a big stretch from the Quest 2 that was, what, $299. However, it is a step in technology, and again, they're focusing on enterprise. Now, I don't know. This is really hard for me, because for me, it was very similar to the step up that I did from the HP G2 to the Vario. It was a lot more expensive, but man, I got that little bit of quality and clarity out of it. And I've said over and over, to me, the Vario was worth it for me. And I think you're going to run into the same situation with the Quest Pro. So let me just say who I think the Quest Pro is really for. The Quest Pro, in my opinion, is for someone who already has a wide library of games in the Quest store or the Oculus store. So they already have a vast library. And they want to play those games with just a little more clarity and a little more detail than what they can get on the Quest 2. And if you're willing to spend the $1,500, this will give that to you. Now, I think that's really the only use case that I would recommend anybody buying a Quest Pro for, because I think there are going to be better PC VR titles, like if you have Steam games. I think there's going to be a better headset out there for that application. I also don't know that you're paying for a lot of technology that I don't think is going to be useful. Like I said, a lot of it's the AR stuff. The big thing that I didn't like about the Quest Pro, and again, I haven't used it, but it's got an open sides and an open bottom. And so it's just kind of the screen hanging on your face. And to me, I like to be fully immersed in my experiences. And again, because this is also an AR platform, I understand why they did that. But the problem is, they've actually come out with blinders that come with the headset. And you almost need those, because what everybody's talking about, because the lenses are bigger, with those sides opening, if you're in a room with any kind of light, you're getting reflections on those screens. That's going to be very distracting. Now, you also can't play this thing in the dark because it's inside-out tracking, so you got to have some light so that the cameras can read where they are. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing. Now, the other thing we looked at, they are offering a full gasket face mask for an extra $50, and it doesn't look like that's going to be released till the end of November or December. But that thing has a myriad of problems, and I don't recommend anyone buy that face gasket. And here's why. Basically, it's $50 for a piece of kind of rubbery silicone that clamps in. But even though it blocks the sides and it blocks here, it still has an opening with the nose. So you're still going to see the outside world through the nose. And for those of you that have watched the channel, you know I spent a lot of time on the HP Reverb G2 when I did the FOV increase mod to block that nose light. I hate seeing the outside world because I want to be fully immersed in my VR experience. And that gasket from Meta is not going to do it. So skip that entirely. The other big problem with that gasket on, the headset doesn't charge. That gasket keeps the headset out of the charging dock just enough that it won't charge the headset. So you're going to have to pull that thing out. It's only magnetic, so it's not a big deal, but you're going to have to pull it out every time you want to charge that headset. And for a product from Meta designed to use with the Quest Pro, good job, Meta. Way to not test stuff before you did it. So my recommendation to you is wait until an aftermarket company like VRCover or somebody comes out with a face gasket that properly fits, that properly blocks the light around the nose, and also will work with the charging base, because I'm sure they're going to address all those problems. I personally can't imagine the gaming experience with everything wide open like that, but I have heard from some people that they get used to it and they don't mind it. Again, I, in my mind, can't imagine enjoying that, knowing as much as I hated having any light bleed even through the nose. I can't imagine having everything wide open for a true VR experience. I think that would drive me crazy. But again, till I try it, I guess I can't really answer that question for sure. So let's talk a little bit more about the controllers too. So the controllers are going to be available and compatible with Quest 2 headsets. So that's an interesting proposition. Now, they're going to cost about as much as the Quest 2 cost originally. They're $300, and I've been kind of thinking about that. Now, the only issue that I've heard anybody talk about on the controllers, everybody loves the controllers, the only issue they've mentioned is they take a little bit of time to start up and initialize. So when you power them on, it takes a minute for them to actually align and register. And that's about the only complaint I've heard about them other than the price. Now, here's the problem for you Quest 2 owners, though. The Quest 2 is known for its quality of control tracking. So if you're not having any problems with the controllers now, do you really want to spend another $300 to get these upgraded controllers? I think the controllers would be useful for anybody that's got problems with their tracking. I can see it useful for people that play a lot of bow and arrow games, because bow and arrow games, you're always pulling your string back. And with the headset, tracking it, it basically can lose that hand. So I think if you do a lot of bow and arrow games, it could be a good purchase for you. And then also if you do a lot of shooter games where you're having problems with those rings hitting each other, I can see where that would be a possible good thing, or where you're occluding one controller from the other. So if you're running into tracking problems because of your first-person shooters or bow and arrow games, this might be a good option. But other than that, if you're not having any controller problems, then why worry about it? Now, here's an interesting thing I haven't seen anybody else talk about yet. So looking at the way the controllers work, now the controllers are basically independent. They have multiple cameras in each controller, 3 cameras, I think, on each controller. They have a processor in them, the whole thing. So they're kind of like a mini headset for the controllers. And thus, they don't need to see the headset, or more accurately, the headset doesn't need to see the controllers to know where they are. They're independently tracked. So I'm thinking to myself, that is a perfect solution for leg tracking. If you want to do social VR and things like that, the problem we've always had is leg tracking, because with the headset, your body occludes any vision of the legs. Well, this is a perfect option for making some little leg trackers that you could strap on your legs, and then you would be able to do full body tracking using inverse kinematics, things like that. And so that might be the right solution, the right technology to fix that problem. And as we all know, Meta keeps bragging about their leg tech, but for those of you that have been following it, you know that was a little bit of a ruse when they did the announcement of it. So I'm really excited about that and the potential for that. It sounds like most of the users think the controllers are very close to Lighthouse tracking that we all have with our Steam VR and stuff that I love. Loves Lighthouse tracking. So if these controllers are getting close to Lighthouse tracking quality and they're easier to set up, and then you could also use them for leg tracking, I think that's a real win moving forward. So I'm excited to see what happens for that. So again, that's kind of my overall thoughts on this headset. I don't think anyone should buy it unless you have a lot of money to burn, because about a year from now, Meta's already talked about they're going to come out with the Quest 3. And I would imagine the Quest 3 is going to have, if not the exact same optics and lens, screen combination, it's going to have one very close to it. So I think if you can wait about a year, you're going to have the one thing that makes this Quest Pro really good, which is the optics. I think you're going to have that in a much more affordable solution. So if you can wait, if you have a vast library and you don't want to wait, this might be a good choice for you. But that's really the only use case that I would recommend at this point, anyone getting a Quest Pro. So that should do it for this quick update and my thoughts on the new Quest Pro. If you haven't been to the channel before, if you haven't liked and subscribed, please do that. Every subscription helps us. And just as a reminder, we are also now a Vario Aero affiliate. So if you're in the market for a Vario Aero, please use our affiliate link down below. It really helps the channel out. So that's it. Until next time, I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch. And remember to get your game on.